an unprecedented genocide. In this conception, Hitler appeared to be a weak dictator, pushed forward by structures native to modern society and economy. While this model succeeded in challenging the common refrain of "Hitler did it, not me," many were unsatisfied because it seemed to write Hitler out of history, depriving the story of a prime mover. By seeing only the elites as Hitler's shareholders in power, this theory made a mistake similar to that of the German elites who had helped Hitler into power in 1933. They imagined putting Hitler on their leash, pushing him so far into a corner he would squeak, but they overlooked the power of the people behind Hitler. Many of the elites hailed from Germany's still unbroken aristocracy and could not imagine having anything to do with the unwashed masses. On the other hand, Hitler was convinced that he could not lead with terror and brute force in his effort to win the people's support, while shaping them into the instrument he needed to win wars and sustain Nazism. The Nazi concept of power, playing to the masses, was as far out in front of these elites as the Blitzkrieg model for fighting ground wars was advanced beyond the tactics of its enemies in 1939 and 1940. Hitler took for granted that in the 20th century, the masses had entered the stage to play their role in state power, and he greeted them. He did not, however, take cues from the democratic structures that followed the British and French revolutions. Hitler's approach to power borrowed from his hero, Benito Mussolini, and to some extent from Bismarck's autocracy. But he devised his own goals that were as far removed from the course of human history as the most utopian science fiction. Blossoming in the 1970s, social histories, From Below, took account of ordinary persons and everyday life, a perspective that dominated during successive decades. Some of these new histories looked at working-class resistance and collected actions of defiance by churchgoers and religious authorities to defend their religious practices. Hitler drew back whenever he met public resistance, such as on euthanasia in August 1941, and the church question, a leading German historian wrote in 1976. But this new perspective soon took a turn toward viewing bottom-up forces as merely contributing to, rather than also weighing down, Hitler's quest. The investigation of the range of popular responses to the regime, however, was being drawn to a close before all events of mass nonconformity, social unrest, and popular protest had been examined as a type of German defiance to which the regime responded in appeasing ways that slowed its progress. True, the workers had not resisted much, and church authorities had, on balance, assisted the dictatorship more than they had hindered it. Still, there was hindrance that showed how Hitler ruled within the Reich, and it came from populations beyond the German-blooded workers and the Christian churches. In Hitler's conception and exercise of power, it was not just the elites that mattered, or the specific church and working-class sectors of the German people that held the possibility of influencing the regime. Rather, it was his race of people, collectively, that he considered the basic cornerstone of his power. And those people would also, in his pipe dream, pass along National Socialism for generation after generation, once they had aligned their thinking fully with his. Hitler did not think that he could achieve total state power without forming a total society, although shaping the Germans into a Nazi society was beyond his powers. Nonetheless, in the context of the national humiliation and dislocation the Germans experienced after World War I, Hitler made surprising headway with brass-knuckled solicitations in gaining unquestioning fealty. German elites and those at the tops of organizations were brought quickly into alignment with his leadership, within a matter of months. But aligning the people with his leadership was an effort that would have to proceed in phases over decades, as Hitler readily acknowledged. When challenged by a mass of people motivated by their German traditions, he held himself, for the moment, to persuading them that National Socialism offered a better way. Although the compromises resulting from this persuasion slowed his progress, Hitler was unwilling to allocate increased time for the achievement of his goals. In fact, as thoughts of his death began to weigh on him, he began to imagine realigning German attitudes so that the German masses acted according to Nazi ideals within the span of his own lifetime. Reaching to realize his insane vision, his early feats in diplomatic and popular success urged him on toward an end that brought Germany and Europe down on what Winston Churchill called a rubble heap, a charnel house, a breeding ground of pestilence and hate.